To learn to live the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Click the bell notification. It's all free. So the other day I made a video about pigs, but that day I was supposed to have made a video about my water tank here. I spent the entire morning, well, I don't know, from 8 o'clock to probably 1 o'clock working on this tank, and I made video about it, and I lost all the video. My SD card messed up and I had to reformat it. Of course, it was just gone, so I was aggravated, so much so that I just wasn't going to talk about the tank anymore, so I went out and made a video about pigs. And I even said in that video, and it's still true, the only stress in my life is YouTube. If I want to get aggravated, I just deal with YouTube for 20 minutes. The other day I worked on this tank. This system that I have works really well, and I have a video on that I'm going to attach at the end of this video. The card should be right here at the end of the video, and you just click that card, next video will pop up, and it's about how the system works and the well and the whole thing. And so if you'll click on that video, it sure does help the algorithm recognize that you like this video. Sure would help me out, and you'll understand how this system works. But essentially what I do is I just turn on the well using the generator, the solar panels. I just plug it in. The well pump starts up, and then I run a hose, a garden hose. Well, it's actually an RV hose. Right now it's in here so it doesn't freeze. I've been putting it away. That water is filtered. I got 3 filters on it, 2 charcoal filters and a sediment filter. And then I just pump it right into this tank. This is a 275-gallon IBC tank, food grade, and you can buy these relatively cheap, even buy them new, not too terribly bad. I don't know, it's been a few years since I've looked at them. I would say under 200 bucks you could probably buy this tank brand new. I bought this one used, and I think it was $50, so not too terribly bad. You can find them all over the place. People sell them in bulk quantities. And then what I got down here is a little RV pump, water pump. You can buy those on Amazon, and I got the cheap one. You just type it on Amazon, RV water pump. That's a DC pump, so it runs off batteries. I have the battery in the house, and I can charge the battery using my solar panels. It doesn't use a lot of amps, probably less than 2 amps, so 12 times 2, 24 watts at most. One of the things that I have to deal with is cold weather. Cold weather's coming on us, and things are going to freeze. We've already been below freezing twice this year. Now, in the well pump, the water doesn't freeze because I have it so that the water drains back down into the well. You'll see here that I have this black pipe, this black flexible pipe here, runs all the way down to the well pump. About 30 feet or so, I've drilled a hole in that. Just a little hole. That way the water will drain back down into the hole. This pipe is now empty, so that will never freeze. No matter what happens to my tank here, I still have water. So what I'm trying to do is utilize my heat as much as possible. Everybody has different solutions on how to do this. I just chose mine. People have said that I should run copper tubing around my chimney of my fireplace. That way I can heat the water through my chimney. But then I would have to pump water. You might be able to do it. There's a video out there where you can get it to recirculate because of the heat. The problem is I don't run the wood stove all day long. I only run the wood stove 3 or 4 hours. Then it shuts down because the tiny house holds heat so well. Now, as it gets colder, I may have to run it more often, but I still won't get enough heat in the chimney to keep this warm. But what I do have is I have a house that's always above 70 degrees, always. Because when it gets down to 69 degrees, then I turn on the wood heater. So what I did was I got a fan on the other side of this house. I can't show you the fan because the closet is so small that there's just no way to show you how that works. And it blows house temperature into here. Now last year, all there was a little hole there. My thinking was all I needed to do was keep the water warm. This insulated box would stay warm enough that it wouldn't freeze. Well, when it got down to sub-zero temperatures, the hose, there's a hose, a white hose just like the RV hose, that runs from the RV pump into the house, froze. That's the only thing that froze in here, was the hose itself. Everybody has different solutions again, and I'm not going to go through every possible solution that people have told me about, but everything that people have told me to do, for one reason or another, won't work. Bury the tank. Well, if I bury the tank, then I have to drain the tank every time I want to work on it. So if the RV pump broke, I don't even know how I would do that, because I would need the pump to drain the tank. So I didn't want to bury it. People told me to put the RV pump up here. Well, I can't do that because it doesn't, the RV pump, this particular RV pump, doesn't draw a suction. I don't think any RV pump does, but some people say they do, so I don't want to argue with that because I don't know for 100% sure that that's a true statement. Other people said just use the sun to keep it heated. Well, we really can't do that because we have trees all around, cedar trees, and it doesn't get enough sun or heat to do that. So we can't just paint this black and make that work. So what I have done is I'm pumping heat into the tank from the house. The house is at 70 degrees or above. Well, when the heat was coming out here, that hose did freeze. So I tried to manipulate things the best I could, and I ran a little bit of duct work in here, and I tried to get the air down to the RV pump as best I could. But I just couldn't get it to work with what I had available. Now remember, we just moved in the house in January. February got down below 0 temperatures. Really, it was, I didn't know what could go wrong in order to fix it. So I was reacting. This year, I've got a much better plan. So I bought this flexible, insulated ventilation pipe, and I ran it into the house here. So right on the other side of this wall is a fan. It's blowing heat all the way over to where the RV pump is. I've put the hose inside the ventilation. So over here is the RV pump. Now I've just put a blanket of insulation on top of the ventilation also, just to hold the heat in more. Then I put a little thermometer transmitter right down there at the edge of the tank. You can't see it, it's covered up with insulation. That temperature is what I'm worried about. I want to make sure that this tank can get water into the RV pump. Now the tank is unlikely to freeze. It didn't freeze last year, even at sub-zero temperatures. It got a little film of ice, but you could just simply break it. As long as I can keep that connection right there from freezing, I'll always have water. I think I've got success. So this morning it's 32 degrees outside, and the temperature at that spot that I was showing you is 60 degrees, 59.2 degrees. So it is very warm where I need it. That hose is not going to freeze. So that means that we got basically 30 degrees difference between outside temperature and the temperature at that spot where the water's coming in at. Now, the other thing that keeps this tank warm is the water itself. When I fill it up from the well water is 50 to 60 degrees. So imagine that this water is at freezing temperature. I pour 50 or 60 degree temperature water into here, it's going to melt any ice that's in there. When I know that it's going to freeze, Carolyn just kicked on the RV pump. You can hear it run. That's what the RV pump sounds like out here. If I know it's going to get really cold, what I'll do is I won't fill it for several days. I'll let this tank get halfway empty or so, and then I'll fill it from the well. That means the temperature in the tank is now going to be well above freezing because I just filled it up with that warm water. That warm water will hold temperature very well, plus the heat that I'm putting into it from the house. Now I'm going to take you in the house real quick. So here, right at the door, is the wood stove. Right now, there is no fire in it. I started it, I don't know, probably 7 o'clock in the morning. It's noon now, and you still can't touch the stove. It's hot. So you can see I can put my hand on the chimney for several seconds and it won't burn me. So the stove is still hot, but the chimney is not. So if I were to wrap copper tubing around that with water in it and run it out to there to keep it warm, it wouldn't do any good. There would not be enough heat transfer from the chimney to the water in the copper tubing out to the tank. So that just doesn't work. Then you come up on top of the shower here. This is the ventilation. The suction of the ventilation that goes out to the tank. I wanted to show you here, I got a cigarette lighter right here. And so hopefully you'll be able to see when I put it up to here, it's pulling that flame in there. So you'll get a really good suction of air into this just by having a small fan sucking air from here and pushing it into the tank. This is working. We're getting a huge heat transfer from inside to the outside. And this is something that I really hope to convey, is you really got to think non-traditional thinking when you're building your tiny house or living off grid. The logic behind having a recirculation water around the chimney, so you're constantly pumping water in and out, and that should keep it warm. when you think about living in a tiny house, that just isn't going to work because you're not always running the wood stove. I've heard other people say, well, why don't you use the water heater? We have a propane on-demand water heater. Turn the water heater on, pump it outside. That'll keep it warm. Well, then you're using propane. Now, I have said in an emergency, I would use my little portable buddy heater right here, and that's propane also. But the thing is I'm only going to use that if it freezes. If it freezes, then I'm going to have to thaw it out. That's what that's for. If it freezes, I can't use the propane water heater because the water's frozen. So that's just an emergency backup. Now remember, I still got the well. I can literally disconnect the pump from the water heater, and the water heater is just an on-demand water heater. Propane, it's a little small thing. You're not even going to be able to see it all. But this is the on-demand water heater. It's a little camping water heater is all it is. It's like 150 bucks now. I've got to back up one of these just in case this ever fails. But there's your temperature control. So when you turn on your water, the flame kicks on. You can ramp up the flame. You can turn the flame down. You can turn the speed up, the pressure of the water, or actually the flow of the water, up or down. It's really easy to use. So if I ever have to, I'll just turn the well on, and we can take our showers and do our dishes and everything while the well is running, and shut it off, wrap the hose back up, put it back in the house so it doesn't freeze. So I have plenty of water. There's no fear of me running out of water this year. So if you'll click onto this video, I'd really appreciate it. It helps the algorithm know that you like this video. It also shows you how our water system works. So I hope I can inspire you to think outside the box so you can live your dream. Thanks for watching.